I've had my Surface Pro 3 for nearly 4 years. Let's see how it's held up. When I was shopping around for some laptops, the Surface Pro 3 just seemed to fit the perfect niche. It was very portable, it had a decent battery life, the specs were also pretty good, and something that I really liked was that I could take notes on it. See, my original purpose was to use it for college, so the note-taking was really important. The purpose of this video is to figure out how it's held up those 4 years, and to really give a prediction for the long-term potential of the Surface line. First things first, what are the specs on this thing? It has an Intel i5 processor, the 4300U, which is, I believe, the 4th generation processor, which comes with HD 4400 graphics by Intel, which you're not going to be playing games on this thing. It has 256 gigabytes of SSD space and 8 gigabytes of RAM. It has an SD card slot in the back, a micro SD card slot, but I didn't have to use it. The 256 gigabytes was more than enough for me. All the buttons on the thing still work. They have amazing clickiness and they just work. Sometimes with tablets you have buttons that get stuck, lose performance, but this one's held up really well. I have noticed a slight decrease in battery life, but nothing serious, probably like 15-20 minutes, but you can put that up to just normal battery wear and tear. There is most likely a lot of buildup inside of this thing. I mean, it's 4 years of dust and stuff, and you just can't clean it because it's such a thin design. I've also noticed that it gets warmer than it usually does. When I first got it out of the box. Again, this could totally be because of dust buildup. This thing cannot survive falls. I actually kept a case on this thing the entire time, just to protect it. The hinge is alright. It's actually a pretty good hinge. I have noticed a little bit of looseness, but it's not that bad. As you can probably tell, I have a screen protector on there. The screen is extremely shiny and it is a fingerprint magnet. Some things that I really liked about the Surface Pro 3 was actually the bezel size. I find the bezel size to be absolutely perfect. On tablets, you can't really have a super thin bezel because then you have nowhere to put your fingers. But on the Surface Pro 3, you have perfect amount of thumb room, even if you have slightly bigger hands. Another thing I really love about the Surface Pro 3 is the screen. The screen is 2K resolution and it is amazing. It's 12 inches big, which is a perfect size, and the resolution is 3:2, which is pretty much the same, the aspect ratio that you would get on a piece of paper. A lot of laptops don't have that. They usually have 16:9, which is widescreen, and the normal monitor, but it just looks really good and it's amazing for productivity. It has an extremely accurate pen. It's responsive. It did everything I needed to do. Some things that I've noticed long-term, some problems, is it's pretty heavy. Like, this is a tablet, you're gonna have to hold it a lot, and if you're in bed and you're watching some Netflix on it, your wrist is gonna get really tired. It's a pretty heavy, hefty tablet. The newer ones are lighter, but this is Surface Pro 3. The fan gets loud. It sounds like a mini turbine engine inside. If you do anything intensive, I've had the fan just go crazy while just watching YouTube videos. So yeah, again, like I mentioned before, it can get uncomfortably warm if you're holding it. And one time, while it was updating Windows, it actually shut down by itself, and that's pretty bad. It's called the tablet that can replace your laptop, but you have to buy the keyboard separately, which is a little dumb. The Surface Pro 3 keyboard I actually sold. It's not a very good keyboard. If you are planning on buying a Surface Pro 3, buy the Surface Pro 4 keyboard. This keyboard is amazing. It has a really weird material on it, which I find gets very easily dirty, and I just have no idea how to clean it. The keys I find acceptable. They have decent travel, and I never really had a problem typing on it. I love the background light of the thing too. Overall, the Surface Pro 3 has held up pretty well for what it is. It's 4 years with about a 4-year-old processor. I can still do stuff that I do on my desktop most of the time pretty easily. I think the Surface Pro 3 is a really good example of the long-term potential of all the other Surface Pros that may come out in the future. The Surface Pro 3 is different from, of course, the first one and the second one. The first two Surfaces were really weird. They had small screens. They had, in between they had a weird OS. But this one, full-fledged Windows on a tablet with pretty decent performance. Now performance is a lot better. But if you plan on buying the Surface Pro 3 on eBay, it's going for about $500. They usually come with keyboards because people have them. But I think if you plan on buying it, it's a pretty good purchase. I feel like I have another 2 years I can squeeze out of it. And I'm sure I could use it later than that, but it would just get annoying with, it'll probably slow down a lot. Thank you for watching all the way through. And if you watched all the way through, you might consider clicking that like button. This is my first time actually using a tripod, so some of my shots are kind of messy. But other than that, if you have any tips on, something I can improve on, please leave in the comments below. And if you have any other, comments for the Surface Pro 3, of course, leave those below. Thank you for watching all the way through, and I'll see you guys next time.